Hello, beautiful ladies, and welcome to today's video where we're going to be doing a relationship Q&A from a conservative perspective. A couple of weeks ago, I asked you guys on Instagram to share any relationship questions that you guys have. I've done this before and I had a lot of questions then, and I thought I would do like a part 2. We could do a part 3 if you guys are interested. Let me know in the comments below. Maybe we'll do another one of these. But I just think these are really fun and it's a good way for us to have some girl chat. So let's hop in and see what you guys had questions about. So the first question is, it's been difficult trying to meet a guy in church, not going back to apps ever again. Any advice? My take is that if you want to find somebody who's in your faith, that means you want to find someone who shares your values. So finding activities that you might see someone from your church or from your faith at would be a really good way to meet the people that you would want to meet. So for example, volunteering, if that's something that's valuable to you, you might meet someone there because they would also share that value. If you have any friends who are willing to set you up, you should definitely reach out to them. If you have a married friend, for example, and you really like her husband, ask if her husband has any single friends that he could set you up with. But my husband and I were actually set up by a mutual friend, so I am a big fan of if someone knows you and they know the guy, then they might be able to create a match for you. I also think that it can be really difficult to meet someone at church because people go to church for different reasons and it's not always to meet someone, but it's just creating that friend group that is there to watch out for you and has your best interests at heart will help with the whole dating process anyways. But you can also talk to some of your friends and see if they'd be willing to work with you to set up some sort of mixer so that the people who share your faith and are from your church or from other churches in the area that follow your belief system would be invited to, and then you guys could all kind of meet and mingle in that scenario, which is slightly less of a pressure cooker than being at church and trying to meet people. You can also do something like a book club, so it doesn't necessarily have to feel like a mixer where it's like, oh, we're here to meet people, but oh, we're just having a situation where I like books, they like books, and maybe I can meet someone who we might end up hitting it off. Those kinds of things, going out of your way to set up scenarios where you can meet someone, asking your friends, those are all things I think are really valuable when you're trying to meet a guy. The next one is getting so discouraged with dating. Tips on how to stay positive. Dating is really hard, and I remember I absolutely hated it for most of it. When you meet the right person, all of a sudden that stress that you don't even know that you have goes away because there's just kind of this calm that settles over you. So I totally get it. It is really hard to stay positive, but what I found really helped was kind of taking the time that I was single and dating and using it in a way that I was never gonna be able to use it again. So I would go out on dates by myself. I would take myself to lunch. I would bring a book. I might even get a glass of wine. I would go to see a movie by myself. I would walk around museums, and I would really enjoy this time because being single is really hard, but there are things about being single that are really fun. And if you can take advantage of those things, then you will have a great time. For example, if I were to just like take an entire day and take myself out when my husband has a day off, it wouldn't really make sense. We don't get that much time together when he's working, so we would want to take the whole day together. But when you're single, you can actually take an entire day just for yourself. And as far as dating, I would say if you're a religious person, keep praying, keep remembering that God has a plan for you. You'll meet somebody when the time is right. And if you haven't met someone yet, then that means that there's more for you to do on your own. But just remembering that you're a special person, there is someone out there for you, those kinds of things, those kind of good thoughts. I'm a huge fan of affirmations, so writing down something every single day like, I will meet the right person in the right time, and just kind of saying that to yourself every day, those are so helpful. Huge fan of affirmations, really recommend them. Maybe that would help too. But I do understand that it is hard to date, and I hope that you meet the right person soon. The next question I have is the age gap really that big of a deal in a relationship? So in my opinion, there are a couple of levels to that. I think that a big age gap causes problems when someone feels that they have more life experience than the other person and therefore doesn't take that person as seriously. So when a guy is 10, 15, 20 years older than a woman, then he might not take her advice as seriously because he has lived more. And that makes sense, but that's not a great base for a relationship. It also makes a big difference if you guys are in different places in your life. If the woman is much older and the man is much younger and he's not ready to have children, but she's dying to, that's gonna cause problems. So understanding where the other person is in their life and trying to keep in mind that you want to have a partner in your life, not somebody who's just constantly trying to take care of you. And so having someone who's the same age, I tend to be a bigger proponent of, but of course there are always exceptions. So that's my philosophy on it, and keep it in mind if it seems to fit your situation. The next question is, how do you recommend surviving a long distance relationship? Well, my husband and I, for the entirety of our relationship before we got married, were long distance. We never lived in the same city. And actually, before I met my husband, I vowed I would never do long distance again after I had a long-term relationship that was long distance. But I learned some big lessons in that first relationship. I do have some recommendations for this. Treat your calls and all of that like they're still dates. Don't go on phone calls that are 5 hours or more where you guys feel like you're running out of things to talk about, because that's not normal. If you are in a normal dating experience, you might go out for 2 hours, 3 hours. So limit your phone calls at the beginning. Of course, as it turns more into a relationship, okay, that maybe makes more sense. But even if you are in the relationship-y part, I would say that if you're not living together, you're not spending 5 hours at a time together. So don't necessarily put yourself and your boyfriend through the stressors of a 5-hour long conversation every night, because that's just not normal. That's not what a normal relationship is built on. Another thing is, do not base your relationship on texting. I cannot say that enough. My husband and I agreed from the beginning we were not going to text very much because texting ruins relationships. People misread things, misunderstand things, and all of a sudden something that's totally innocuous becomes a fight. So don't do that. You don't need to have him at the other end of the line all the time. So I would really base it off of phone calls and video calls and things like that. My other big recommendation is early on in your relationship, if you're doing long distance, spend a full 2 weeks together. I didn't do that in my first long distance relationship for 9 months. And the first 2 weeks we spent together, it was like, oh, we're not compatible. And you just don't see that when you're not seeing someone every day like you would if you were living near them. So if you are starting off a relationship long distance, spend that time and take those 2 weeks to see if you really like that person. Because over FaceTime or video chat, it can make it seem like you have more chemistry than you do. So I always say, spend 2 weeks together, and then later on in your relationship, if you can, spend a full month together, because just trying to understand the ins and outs of your relationship when you're that far away from each other can be confusing. My husband and I did do both those things. We spent 2 weeks together and then we spent a month together. So we did have those segments of time before we got married. But the nice thing about long distance relationships is that you don't have the physical stuff to get in the way. You can just get to know each other, which is fantastic, and you don't get kind of caught up in the physical aspect. So it's nice in that you really have to spend that time getting to know each other. The next question is, how is working from home with your husband going? I am so lucky. The two of us have had a really nice time working from home. It hasn't felt like too much or overwhelming. It's actually just been, that's been the easiest thing, is having somebody here with me all the time, and he likes working from home. It's just been a really nice dynamic. I honestly could see this being something, if it worked out in our future, that we would do all the time, that we would just both work from home. It just works for us for some reason. My husband and I are so funny because in a lot of ways, I don't know that you would immediately assume we're just incredibly compatible, but I guess it turns out we're incredibly compatible. So it's not hard for us in a lot of ways to spend this much time together. We enjoy it. We are having a really good time. The next question is, my GF finds it hard to dress modestly. How do I convince her to dress in less revealing clothes? Now, I think that's actually kind of a valid question. I know a lot of people wouldn't like that, but I'm still going to address it. I think it's fair. Dressing modestly isn't always easy. I think a lot of people assume that if you choose to dress modestly, that means that it's because you want to and it's easy and whatever. But for a lot of women, it's a struggle. It's a pull, in the same way that men want to have sex before they're married. There's a pull for women to maybe want to dress a little bit more immodestly and show off their bodies. I do think it's a really nice thing to dress more modestly, but I also understand that as a woman, you don't necessarily want to hear that from somebody. So what I always recommend is compliment your girlfriend when she wears something you like. So just really give her extra compliments when you feel like, oh my gosh, she looks so pretty today. She put in effort to dress modestly. Then that's the moment that you're like, wow, you look really beautiful today. If she likes getting compliments, she's going to start dressing in a way that you like because she thinks that you think she looks nicer. and that's a great thing. Now, of course, I would say don't push her to dress more modestly unless it's like a real problem. But like I said, giving her compliments when you like her outfits will definitely give her an impetus to dress more modestly and more classic. The last question I'm going to do today is, how did you and your husband meet? So we have actually a pretty funny story, but I'll give the shortened version because at some point, let me know in the comments if you guys would like it. I'd like to do a video with my husband all about our dating story, how we got together, etc. So let me know in the comments if that's something you'd be interested in seeing. But my husband and I actually, I mentioned earlier, were set up by a mutual friend. I had a friend who I made in LA. Actually, we got set up on a date, didn't go on the date, and just ended up becoming friends. And then this guy became friends with my husband, and he wanted to set us up for about a year and didn't work out. And then at the very end of that year, I was supposed to be leaving the city when Jacob was coming into the city, and this mutual friend made me miss my train twice so that we would cross paths. So he's a very good friend. We very much appreciate his efforts, and that's kind of how we met. And then of course there's a lot more to the story, but it's a little bit of a hint. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. Please subscribe to my channel and blog if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell to get notified of all my new videos. Head over to my Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook and follow me there. Please head over to classicallyabby.locals.com if you want to support my channel and see more of this content. And I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!